The second speaker, Mr. Hartanti Sandiwijayanti, Bachelor of Nutrition, Master of Nutrition, will explain to us about providing food to vulnerable group during disaster. Mrs. Hartanti Sandiwijayanti is also a lecturer in the Department of Nutrition Science, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Diponegoro. Her research focuses on community nutrition, particularly related to vulnerable groups in child nutrition. She completed a master's degree in a community nutrition program by Southeast Asian Ministry of Education Organization, Regional Center for Food and Nutrition, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Indonesia. So, Mrs. Hartanti, are you ready? Yeah, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Muti. Hello. Yes, good morning. Still remember me? Yes, we meet again. Today I want to share with you about the feeding vulnerable groups during the disaster. So this is the outline of my presentation. First is, what do you think? The second is understanding the vulnerable groups. The third is meeting the special nutritional needs of the vulnerable groups. And the fourth is conclusion. So we jump to the first. What do you think? So please discuss in pair about what should we be concerned about vulnerable groups. And the second is, what should we consider when feeding vulnerable groups? Please discuss in pair for 5 minutes, and then maybe I want to ask some of you to share your opinion. Please discuss. Anyone? Maybe can come forward to share your opinion. Please. From the Philippines? Yes, please.
Hello.
Hello.
So first, why should we be concerned about vulnerable groups, especially during disasters? Basically, they are vulnerable, and regardless of their age group, especially toddlers, babies, pregnant women, and elderly, they're the most common vulnerable groups that are usually being assisted and aided during such emergencies. And in considering when feeding or providing food for them, of course, their age bracket. If they are babies, of course, mostly we should remember about their milk and the applicable foods that they can be obtained, and of course, their location, because we should, as much as possible, match to their dietary preferences with regards to their nutritional requirements that they are needed. For example, if they are pregnant, most likely they need more folate or iron. And then if those vulnerable groups are those stunted children or undernourished, then of course they have higher nutritional requirements to be provided. So there are just some factors that shall be considered in feeding those vulnerable groups.
Okay, thank you. Yes, yes, because they may have different nutrition requirement, we should also consider their food preference, yeah, for example. The other opinion from the nutrition student from Indonesia or Japan? Would you like to share your opinion? You? Okay.
Yeah, the reason why we should concern about the vulnerable groups, there are several different vulnerable groups. Like, why? Because they are more prone to disease and infection, and then they also higher risk of malnutrition. Example, like in elderly, also to prevent mortality due to malnutrition and also the related disease. And to improve their quality of life, especially for like elderly, and also to prolong their life expectancy. And also, what should we consider when feeding vulnerable groups? Of course, their nutrition requirements, and also their physical activity, and their history of illness. Also, if there is the state of health, is there any infection? Because if there is any infection, we have to treat the infection first. Then we can consider the count the nutrition requirement, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Already complete, yeah? Yes, because the vulnerable group, they more prone to disease, yeah? Especially during the disasters. Yes, we continue to the next session, understanding the vulnerable groups. So in times of disaster, vulnerable groups such as children, pregnant and lactating mothers, the elderly, and people with disabilities face the highest risk of the malnutrition and food insecurity. So ensuring their nutritional needs are met is crucial for their survival and recovery. Yeah, this is some of vulnerable groups. First is children. Why children considered as the vulnerable group? Because they require more energy and nutrient for rapid growth and development, and also they have higher susceptibility to malnutrition and also dehydration and disease. And the other one is pregnant and lactating women. Why? Because they need additional energy and also nutrient to support the fetal growth and also for milk production. And if they are undernourished, then it can lead to the complication that affect the mother and the child. The next one is elderly. Elderly also required balanced nutrition to manage chronic health condition, and then also to maintain immune function. And they also increase vulnerability because they have physical limitation. And the other one is people with disabilities. They also may have specific dietary requirement, or they may need assistance in feeding. And some also maybe have a higher risk of food security due to mobility challenge and dependency on caregiver. So how to meet the special nutritional needs of the vulnerable groups? Yes, when we talk about infant and young children, we will talk about breastfeeding. We know that breastfeeding is the ideal food for infants because it provides all the nutrient requirement, and also it have immune function. Yeah, it can protect children from infection. And during emergency, the breastfeeding become more important. Why? Because we know that during emergency, usually we have lack clean water, and the infectious disease is increased. So by giving breast milk, it can help children to protect them from the infection and also fulfill their nutrient requirement. And how about artificial feeding? Breastfeeding substitutes like infant formula. It is a concern regarding to this during the emergency. Why? Because to prepare formula milk, usually we need clean water. And the clean water is usually scarce during the emergency. So the resources needed for safe artificial feeding are usually scarce in emergency. And it can increase the risk of diarrheal disease and also malnutrition if it is not prepared safely. And the use of infant formula should only be used when all other options have been exhausted. For example, for the children that the mother is not there, maybe the mother is died, or maybe the mother have illness, so they can breastfeed their child. And we cannot also find the wet nurse, maybe we can give the infant formula. So infant formula is the last option when breast milk or wet nurse can be provided. And if breast milk substitute is the only acceptable option, we should also include the essential package of support. For example, we must also provide cooking and feeding equipment. And we also have to have water and sanitation and hygiene support. We must make sure that there is clean water. And also we have to give them access to the healthcare services. So some challenge during the disaster is that the baby does not get the breast milk. For example, when the baby lost his mother or the mother is unable to breastfeed because of stress or illness. And what that still usually happen is lack of supervision in the provision of formula milk assistance for infants. So, for example, in Indonesia, many people is care for the others. During the disaster, they will give donation to those that suffer from disaster, and they give the formula milk, and formula milk is not distributed. Is distributed freely. It should not be happening because I have already mentioned that preparing formula milk during the emergency is difficult for preparing it in the safe condition. This is the guiding principle for feeding infants during the emergency. So during an emergency, we should make sure that all infants can normally be exclusively breastfed during the first 6 months. And they should be breastfed on demand from birth because the colostrum also have essential benefit. And every effort should be made to identify ways to breastfeed infants whose mothers are absent or incapacitated. For example, by having wet nurses. And also we must try to have relactation. If mother ever breastfed but then stop during the disaster, we must also try to do the relactation so the baby can be breastfed. Besides that, every effort should also be made to create and sustain an environment that encourages exclusive breastfeeding and continued breastfeeding. For example, by preparing the space for the mother so they can breastfeed the child. And how about the use of breast milk substitutes such as infant formula? It should be strictly controlled and using this following guideline. If there is ready to use infant formula in liquid form, then it is better than use the powder form because we do not need to add the water if the formula milk is already in the liquid form. And for children over 6 months, we can use alternative liquid milk such as pasteurized milk or ultra high temperature liquid milk or yogurt. And when we provide infant formula, we also have to make sure that the amount is sufficient. And it should be fed by cup because it is more easily to be cleaned. And we also have to concern about the appropriate use, careful storage, and also the hygiene of feeding utensils. And those who are responsible for feeding infant formula should also be equipped and be trained. And feeding infant formula to the minority of children that cannot be breastfed should not interfere the protecting and promoting the breastfeeding for the majority. So infant formula only can be used with strictly control only when the child cannot be breastfed. And do not use feeding bottles because it is difficult to be clean. The other one, besides breastfeeding, children also, infant and young children also need complementary feeding after 6 months. And they require safely prepared food from locally available food that are rich in energy and micronutrients. So what is the challenge during the emergency? Usually available food may be difficult to prepare in the soft or semi-solid form because the infant, the child below the 1 year, the texture of the food is different with the children after 1 year old. And traditionally, ingredient that's normally used for preparing weaning food may be not available. And basic food commodities such as cereals, pulses, and oil do not readily meet the young children nutritional needs. And environmental condition may also hinder safe food preparation and feeding. So it is required to assess whether the household food is suitable for the complementary feeding. And also, we maybe need for provide some advice and support for complementary feeding. And we also need to ensure that access to feeding equipment and cooking supplies is available. This is some option for addressing the nutritional needs of older infants and young children. For example, we can use the basic food aid commodities that is given on general ration, but we add it with supplement from inexpensive locally available food. We can also use blended food if it is available, or we can also have additional program. Usually, we also have a supplementary feeding program. So in this program, we can give additional food for the vulnerable groups, including the infant and young children, such as by giving fruit, vegetable, fish, egg, or the other locally available food. There are also some challenges, and it can imply on the planning for needs. For example, we know that in infant, the stomach capacity is limited, so they need to eat more frequently. So as the implication, we should also provide sufficient fuel and also cooking pot for the household with young children. And we need also to have consistent and timely supply of food aid commodities to facilitate appropriate food preparation practice. The other challenge or the other issues is about household food security. So food insecurity may contribute to the intra-household food distribution, and it can make the infant and young children cannot get the food as much as they require. So the implication from the planning is we have to make sure the adequate and equitable general ration, and we need to have household monitoring on community-based surveillance to identify whether there is a problem related to intra-household food distribution. The other issues is about safe and appropriate food preparation and caring activities. For example, because lack of access to clean water and poor sanitation, and also maybe the caregiver is inexperienced or overburdened with the many tasks. So how the implication from the planning for the needs, we have to make sure that they have access to adequate amount of clean water and also some suitable sanitation facilities. And we may also conduct the health promotion activities for safe food preparation and also dissemination of information about nutrition needs of the young children. During an emergency, we usually also have public kitchen, and usually we also need infant and young child feeding kitchen. So this is a part of public kitchen that provide food for infant and young child. So by having infant and young child feeding kitchen, we can ensure that infant and children get food that age appropriate for the texture and also the nutritional adequacy. It can also function to provide information to the population about the infant and young child feeding, including breastfeeding counseling. The other intervention is supplementation. In Indonesia, we usually have vitamin A supplementation. The target for the vitamin A supplementation is infants and toddlers. Why we give them vitamin A supplementation? Because it can prevent from vitamin A deficiency and it can increase the immunity of infant and toddlers. And it can also prevent the outbreak of measles and diarrhea. We may also need to give zinc supplementation as a part of diarrhea therapy if it happens during the emergency. Then the next vulnerable group is pregnant and lactating mothers. Pregnant and lactating mothers, they requirement for the nutrient is increased. For example, pregnant mothers, they need additional 300 kilocalories per day, and lactating women need additional 500 kilocalories per day. And how we can give them additional calorie? For example, we can give additional energy by adding half portion of staple food at the breakfast and dinner. In many situations, intra-household food distribution practice also can result in pregnant and lactating women consuming less than the minimum requirement. So we also have to make sure that the ration, the food aid that is given, also enough to solve this problem. Some complementary intervention also can be conducted to meet the additional need of pregnant and lactating women. For example, by giving them fortified food commodities. And also, we usually give micronutrient supplement. We can give one daily requirement of multiple micronutrients to protect maternal stores and breast milk contents, whether the woman receive fortified ration or not. So I think it is used in many countries. Yeah? We give multiple micronutrient one a day to the pregnant mother. In Indonesia, we give iron and folic acid supplementation to the mother for 90 days. And during emergency, we also should continue the supplement. And the other supplement is we can also give postpartum mothers 2 capsules of vitamin A. And the other one, we also have to give enough drinking water to the mothers, pregnant mothers and lactating women, because the water requirement is also increased on this group. The next one is older person. The older person have energy requirement that is usually decreased compared to the young adult, but the micronutrient requirement is not decreased. So an adequate diet must ensure that micronutrient requirement still met even with reduced energy intake. So elderly usually need only few energy intake, but they need high micronutrient intake. So the food given must be sufficiently nutrient dense. And another important consideration for older person is that sufficient intake of fluid are required to prevent dehydration and also improve digestion. Yeah, some elderly have problem with digestion and also dehydration. There are several factors that often result in the general ration not meeting the nutritional need of the elder person, such as elderly usually have physical limitation, so they can have poor physical access to the ration, and they also have poor digestibility. And some of them also have lack of motivation or inability to prepare food. And in emergency, these factors is exacerbated due to the general breakdown in normal family and community support mechanism. So this is some consideration to the nutritional and food needs of older person. First, we have to make sure that they have access to easily digestible and micronutrient-rich food. So we must provide, for example, blended food for the older person or to the family that including older person. And we also may assist and encourage a small-scale horticultural activities to improve the consumption of fresh food. And we also need to have family and community support for food preparation. For example, by having assistance with tasks such as collecting of ration, because maybe they cannot go to the place where the ration distribution is given. So maybe the family or the community should help to collect the ration. Maybe also need to help for the food preparation and collection of water. The other vulnerable group is people with disabilities. Yeah, for example, people living with HIV, they have higher risk of malnutrition because they maybe have poor intake, they have infection, they have poor digestibility. So they need some help. For example, we can provide fortified, blended, or special food supplement. And in some situation, it also might be appropriate to increase the overall size of the food ration. And if the people who living with HIV is malnourished, we should also need to refer them to the targeted feeding programs. The other one is people with psychosocial disabilities. They may be also at particular risk of aspiration from family members or caregiver, and also may face discrimination. So it is required to ensuring their physical access to food and access to energy dense and nutrition rich food. And don't forget about their caregiver. Yeah, so we not only care about the people with disabilities, but we also have concern to caregiver that caring for them. Why? Because they may have less time to access food because they caring of the ill, and they maybe also have a greater need to maintain hygienic practice. So vulnerable group usually they more prone to infection and they need more concern about food safety. So the caregiver also have a greater need to maintain the hygienic practice. The caregiver also may have fewer assets to exchange food because maybe for the treatment they already spend much cost. So this is why we also have to care about the caregivers of people with disabilities. So as I mentioned before that vulnerable group, they have issues about food safety, so we need to pay attention to the 5 keys of food safety. For example, we have make sure to keep clean, wash hand with soap and running water, and flush feeding utensil using hot water before use. And then we have to spare it raw foods and food that are already cooked, so there will not be any cross-contamination. And then we also use fresh food and cook until mature, or not. We should not cook only half cooked, but for meat, for example, we have to have well done meat to make sure it's safe for the vulnerable groups. And also important to store food at the right temperature, by the type of food, and use clean, safe water. Yes. This is the last but not least for conclusion. So the conclusion is vulnerable groups such as children, pregnant and lactating women, elderly, and people with disabilities need more attention during disaster. And ensuring adequate access to nutritious food, providing suitable food based on their condition, implementing supplementary programs, and concern about food safety are required. That's all. This is some reference for further reading. And any question? Maybe I give back to the moderator to lead the question session.
Okay, thank you to our speakers who have explained about the food aid management during disaster and the feeding for vulnerable groups during disaster. So, any question for the from the participants about how to provide food and how to calculate the nutrition need for the vulnerable group during a disaster? Any question? Okay. Please come forward to say your questions.
Hello. I
Hello.
would like to ask if, since in the Philippines, based on our Philippine dietary reference intake, our nutritional requirements for pregnant and lactating women have differences with each other. Like, for example, for folate, there is a higher nutritional requirement for pregnant than lactating. So I would like to ask if in Indonesia you have, or are they have the same requirements, or they have differences as well?
Okay. Is for folate or for another nutrient? Just for folate or another nutrient too? All the macronutrient and micronutrient. Yeah, okay. Mau langsung dijawab atau?
Maybe I'll try to answer the question. But before I want to ask the question first. So how many micrograms, yeah, for the folate requirement in the Philippines?
For pregnant women, there is additional 200 micrograms for pregnant, while additional 150 micrograms for lactating women.
Yes. I do not remember how much is the requirement in Indonesia, but Mr. Ahmad Sauki still seek in the internet. But we usually have 400 supplementation that contain of 100 microgram of folate during the pregnancy, and it can also continue during the breastfeeding. Yes, yes. For the requirement itself, we will check it first. Is already answered your question, or maybe some additional question?
Okay, is there any question from anyone? Any question? Any other question? Maybe? Okay. Please come forward.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm very curious about how we manage vulnerable groups, especially the infants during disasters. Um, this is out of curiosity. In the Philippines, we have milk banks where women can donate their breast milk, and sometimes it is brought into the places who are hit by disasters, and those breast milk are given to children. It is prioritized over breast milk substitutes. If I may ask, is it since we're predominantly a Christian country, so it's a common practice for us. Out of curiosity, is it also the same for Muslim?
Yes, I get your question. So in Indonesia, there is also milk bank, but it is not commonly used. Yes, because the Muslim, if we breastfeed the other child, while we have also the child. So for example, I have a son, then I breastfeed the other child, the daughter of the other mother. Then my son and her daughter is become related, brother and sister. And as the consequence, my son cannot marry the daughter. Yes, if they get some same breast milk. So if we using the milk bank, usually we don't know who donate the milk. So we prefer having wet nurse, so we know who is the parent, who is the children, so we know which child that can be married by our children, for example, like that. Yes. Yeah, so the common practice in Indonesia is wet nurses, then milk bank. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hartanti, for the answer. Maybe about the requirement of volat. Is there any information?
From the previous question, we already get that in Indonesia, for the pregnant mother, they need additional 200 microgram of folate during pregnancy and 100 microgram during the lactation period. Yes, yes, but higher on the pregnancy period.
Any other question maybe from the participant to the speakers? You want to question? You have a question? Yeah.
So good morning also from the Philippines. I'm Janelle. So my question is more on for sir. So how do you manage if you mentioned a while ago that a source for procurement is donations. So how do you manage if in case there's an overflow of donations? Because in the Philippines we're very active. NGOs and individuals are very active in relief operations that sometimes there's an overflow. For example, many NGOs would donate porridge. So sometimes there's too much porridge and the people get sick of it. So how could we prevent waste or how could we utilize those donations better?
Thank you for the questions.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, what's your name? Janelle. Yeah. Sorry, thank you for your question. And then in Indonesia also the NGO very active. We have so many communities move if there are some disaster in other areas. And then how to manage it, I think the theory said that the first manage is come from the area of disaster. So what they need in there. So after that, they inform the needs to other NGO who participate in the area. Yeah, the theory is like that, but I think the practice, yes, we sometimes we donate our clothes, and then the clothes are very is not important. They don't need clothes, and then so we suggest that give the money, and then after the money collect, we can buy some things that the area needs. So the manage come from the area, and then they inform to others, hey, we need this, and this. So give us the list, and then we provide. So this is very important because we have to some areas maybe they different needs for the other areas. Okay, if it answer your questions, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
Maybe I want to add some information.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we also face that problem in Indonesia, but I think by now we have better coordination. So by having coordination, for example, for regarding to food, we have disaster management agency and also health health department of the government, and also it also in the coordination it also involves the NGOs that is participated in the donation. So by having the good coordination, we know what is already enough, what require, what a need that should be, what thing that should be provided, for example, like that. So I think the coordination is one of the key to have good distribution.
Okay. Okay, I think it's enough for the first lecture session. I want to thank our speakers for their excellent explanation, and of course for the all participants for the active participation in this first lecture session. So please give applause for our speakers, Mr. Ahmad Sauki and Mrs. Hartanti Sandiwijayanti. So this is the end of our first lecture session. Before we begin the next session, we will take a short break for maybe 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes, and we will meet again in this room at 10:15.